Good afternoon, everybody. And hello to our friends watching virtually at home on Zoom. My name is Melissa Craig, and I'm a JDPP ensemble member, diversity coordinator, teaching artist, and just devoted lover of the work that we do in this organization. We're here today for Response and a Call. Maybe many of you have heard of this series or seen the past ones. This one is they're all special, right? But this one seems to be kind of perfectly timed and has a very special name, Story Power, Reclaiming the Narrative. What better place to do it than in the library? And with one of our greatest partners, the Hartford Public Library. We've been doing lots of work together over the years. So you're in store for lots of things today. I just wanted to just introduce so that we start on time, because people at home on Zoom are like, it's 12 o'clock. But in the room here, we have an amazing array of things to look at. We have each other to talk to, interact with. It's definitely going to be more of a village style event and a conversation that we all can be a part of and should be feeling free to comment on and maybe even think of questions along the way, so that when we get to that question and answer part, you can actively be a part of it, because I expect that extension out into the audience and on Zoom at home. I'd like you to watch a slideshow first. I had the pleasure of working at the North End Senior Center, the South End Senior Center, the Albany Branch Library for Hartford Public, and the Park Street Branch, all 4 locations, trying to gather perspectives from both youth and senior members of the Hartford community, because I wanted Story Power to really have a significant reflection on the Black and Brown community, on people that are from diverse backgrounds, and how books and book bans eventually and throughout affect our communities. So what you're going to see first is a slideshow that Robin and Judy really worked hard on helping me to curate. I did all the field research with the pictures and quotes that you see. They're real words from real people in the community, and how books have affected them and what book bans might do to our world. There's also in that slideshow a collection of facts and statistics about book bans. So I think there are a lot of people in the state and in the world who don't even understand it's happening, don't think that Connecticut is one of those kinds of states. And we're going to open your eyes to some things, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to all engage in a really great conversation. Once the slideshow is over, I think rather than talking again, I would like to share with you my solo that I've been working on for the ensemble's most recent work. It's called Books and Other Endangered Species. And my solo is a very personal moment. It's not been seen by anybody in the public yet, so it's the debut of it. It's still a work in progress. But we're gonna go kind of right from the slideshow into the dance, so that you can really get your eyes and hearts full of thoughts and ideas. And that my beautiful guests, who I will introduce after that, will help us kind of put all the perspectives together from lots of different levels of background and experience. Again, I thank you for being here. Thank the library for having us. Thanks to JDPP and all the amazing staff and support that I have from the board as well. Like, so many people that love JDPP know the investment that this work takes. So thank you for being here, and enjoy what we got. Welcome back. Welcome to part 2 of this exciting, well, I mean, part 2, I'm not sure, it's unlimited parts, right? Because it's Banned Books Week. It's a really important year. I got some amazing people on stage with me. We could do this all day. But I wanted to make sure we honor their time and honor, their contributions. And we do have some bio slides up there. So I want to kind of go in order of what we discuss, and I'm going to start on my far left over there. Hi, Gabby.
Hello.
This is Gabby Barnes. She's like famous, but clap for her, yes, clap for her. A really good friend, a person that I respect and admire, and I'm hoping to even deepen friendships with, because you stand for a lot of things that I admire.
Thank you.
Do you want to just say hello to the audience and give a little, they're reading it too, but I'm sure they'd love to hear your voice and hear you say a little bit about yourself.
You can just ignore all of that. It's just fluff. My name's Gabby Barnes. I live here in Hartford. My resume is long, and the path to me sitting in this seat has been very windy. What I will share is that I did used to work here at the Hartford Public Library in new media, working with teenagers. That was probably one of the most exciting and exhilarating times of my career. After that, I worked at the Windsor Public Library as the branch manager. And just this January, I made the decision to walk away from my career in libraries for a number of reasons that we can talk about offline if you're interested in knowing. And so the last year has been a path towards finding what life looks like post-libraries, but they'll never take my library science degree away from me, so I'm a librarian forever.
That's right.
And this conversation tonight is really important to me because books and the library truly saved my life as a child of a single parent. I spent almost every day in the library looking for community, looking for a place to be that wasn't an empty home. And I don't know where I would be if libraries didn't exist, truthfully. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for being here.
It's a gift. Thank you. To my left, immediate left, is a human being that I've known since they were small. Maybe 4 or 5 years old. You know, I've been working with you and family for a long time. This is Angie Bell Torres. And I will let you say more about yourself if you'd like. And certainly, again, people are going to read what's up here. But I found it really important to invite Angie Bell to represent the youth voice in this conversation. If you've watched Response on the Call before, you'll notice I have never had a under 18 guest. Maybe my son, but I don't think he was under 18 at the time when we did Sons and Sons. That's the closest youth guest we ever had. Angie Bell is brilliant and an aspiring genius in all things. She'll tell us more about it, her aspirations, but just tell us a little bit more about yourself, Angie, and whatever you want to share with the audience today and why this is important for you.
Well, she said a few things. So my name is Angie Bell. I am a high school senior currently, and my aspirations largely regard pursuing law and probably becoming a lawyer. This event is important to me largely because of JDPP itself and how much they do for the community and how I connect well with them. But also because I am an avid reader, definitely not a librarian. Don't have that experience under my belt, but I do spend a lot of time reading, and I find it really amazing how when you are reading, the experience can just bring you to unbelievable lengths. Like you can be completely immersed into different worlds, and it's a great way to spend your free time. So I think book banning is a very important topic, and I'm glad to be here today.
Right. All right. Our guest in the center there is Kate Russian, one of only 3 guests that have been on Response on the Call more than once. And that's because we love her so much. And her powerful words as a poet, you'll get a chance to experience a bit. Every time we get together, I have a real warmness in my heart. And she knows, she reminds me of my mom, and we have, there's just a kindredness in terms of family. And it's a nice bond that we get to, I've had the opportunity as a host and curator of this show over all the different episodes to just get to know people and see the world through a lot of different lenses, both artistically and just from a citizen point of view. So Kate's an excellent, wonderful citizen that I'm glad is here with us. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, Kate.
Hi, my name's Kate Russian. I grew up in South Jersey, Camden County, South Jersey. I live in Hartford. Because of books and libraries, I am a poet and an educator. I've taught poetry at all levels, from peanuts to college, and including here at the Hartford Public Library. I'm currently professor and poet in residence at Connecticut College in New London, Connecticut, and I'm really proud to be here with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just give a little bit more context before we dive right into all the topics and hear some of Kate's amazing poetry. Response on a Call started in 2020, very specifically giving a platform to artists and people of color to be able to have a space to talk about topics that were hard. The murder of George Floyd and the shift in the world in the pandemic, the presidency, everything that was happening, we needed a platform, and Judy and JDPP had the foresight and asked me to be a part of it, and it just works really well. We've tackled topics, everything from, the murder of George Floyd to honoring people, specific people. Oh my goodness, I can't, terrible. John Lewis and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It was there. Sorry, friends. The nerves, a little sometimes. We did an episode about fatherhood, sons and sons, fatherhood, manhood, womanhood, humanhood. Just how do things relate in the Black community? To climb a mountain, and there were so many great topics. I encourage you to definitely look at our website and take a look at some of the old ones, because they're still relevant, and they're gonna be pieces of history, I think, these conversations and these perspectives. We always include art, and you got a chance to see me dance. That dance is a tribute to ancestors, it's a tribute to books, it's a tribute to books as keepers of wisdom for me. It really is an important way for me to translate. Sometimes you don't have the words, so you use your art, or sometimes your words are your art. And so if we start monitoring and banning what readers can read, who knows what'll happen when the writers want to write and the dancers want to dance. And we'll talk about that kind of stuff as well. But we will start at the beginning, and I'll pose a question. It's not to be answered yet, but just something for all of us to think about. And what does our world look like without books? So you can think about that, and I would like to ask Kate to read her first piece and think about how those things kind of come together.
Thank you. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote for an anniversary for the Hartford Public Library in 2018. It's called The Library Card, and it's dedicated to Caroline Maria Hewins, First Lady of the Hartford Public Library. I think it's important for all of us to remember that libraries were not always open to everyone. And that word public is very important. At one point, libraries were in private hands, or people had to subscribe, had to pay to belong to a library. The Library Card for Carolyn Maria Hewins, First Lady of the Hartford Public Library. For you, for everyone, for anyone in this community, factory worker, immigrant, refugee, student, child, laborer, cook, mother, whatever your day off, whatever your Sabbath, without regard to age, gender, color, previous condition of servitude. There is no charge for you to join this special club. Imagine all these words and stories, all these worlds for you. Each day of the week, this card is your passport. Your word is all the bond you need to hold, to hear, to read, to touch a book, to share with someone special. A song, poem, picture, vision, a world. Worlds wheeling within worlds. A healing, a commonwealth. We come together as those who gathered before us for the common good for all. We come together in fellowship around this common table. We commune in this common room. Thank you.
I think it's so important that you brought up the fact, not that it's a hidden fact, that libraries, books, lots of other rights that we take for granted now were not widely spread to the whole population at one point in history. And I think for me, as I mentioned before about books as wisdom keepers and history keepers and record keepers, it's important to be able to know, to be able to document your own story and to be able to share what you're experiencing, what your people have been through, what you've been through, and let people read it and be inspired. And so I think for me, a world without books is very grayscale, very boring, very monotonous, and just hope we don't get there. Let's just put it like that. Another thing we can think about too is like how book bans are going to affect communities of color specifically. right? That's one thing that I would like us to talk about. And maybe, it doesn't have to necessarily start there if your mind is in all communities, but for me, especially curating this particular program, being in the skin that I've been in for 45 years, that's important to me. And I have a granddaughter now, and I want her to be able to have books and read and have stories, and I want her to be able to read about me one day and read about all the other amazing people in the world. But I would love to start to hear some perspectives from any of us on on that topic.
Sure.
All right, Gabby, jump in.
Yeah, I find it. I loved the statistics that you were that you included in the slideshow, and I just want to take a second to sort of re-highlight those, because the populations that are most impacted by book bans are the populations whose stories are being challenged, right? So, and my numbers and these numbers differ because there are lots of different organizations that collect this data. What's considered a ban and a challenge is different. So there's like 47%, 41%, but essentially they're all in the same numerical category in some way or another. So 41% of the books that were challenged this year address either LGBTQIA themes or have LGBTQIA characters. 40% of books banned or challenged feature characters of color. 22% include something that revolves around sexual experiences, which could mean puberty, assault, pregnancy, or simply relationships. And 21% address racism, right? So the books that are being targeted are the books telling the stories of our most marginalized populations. When you don't see yourself reflected in a book, the mental and emotional impact that has on you as a child is strenuous. I mean, I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and a lot of characters at that time did not represent my upbringing. There were no children of single moms who were first generation, who had a black mom and a white dad. This wasn't my reality. And so I had to connect with characters that didn't look anything like me. But I got to learn stories and perspectives of other cultures, which was phenomenal. And I feel very well versed as a result of that. I also think it's important to note, you've mentioned this multiple times, what happens when books are constantly challenged and considered risky. Our publishers, right, then start to wonder, is it worth it to work with authors of color, queer authors? You know, if these books are going to be challenged and this is going to create a problem for us. So I'll leave it that there.
Lots to think about. What do you think, Angel?
Honestly, I feel like book banning in itself it's controversial. Like, yes, the book bans that are being challenged and placed, if you think about it, you can see why someone might want to, but at the same time, it's entirely unjust, it's unconstitutional, it's quieting, silencing voices that have fought for so long to be voiced and are just like finally being recognized, and we're taking it away. We're like, oh wait, never mind.
Definitely unjust. I like that word. Unjust. You have any thoughts on that one, Kate?
Yeah, I think at one point, I thought that book bans or controversies around books brought attention to particular authors and particular books. But then I heard an author say, I don't want to be banned, because if my book is banned, then it might not be available in libraries or bookmobiles or in the school library. And that's the only place some of our students and children and adults have access to books. So while there might be a momentary upsurge in the sales of particular books for a time, in the long run, book bans hurt people because it hurts access. I guess the other thing I would say is I worked in a bookstore for a number of years, and I worked at New Words Bookstore in Cambridge, Mass. And every year, whatever the big best-selling book by an African American was, publishers will always run out before Christmas. You know, whether it was I Dream a World, that beautiful photography book, or Sarah Lightfoot Lawrence's biography of her mother. You know, she's Harvard School of Ed, and everybody wanted the book, and somehow, because publishers didn't believe that Black people bought books, we'd always run out before Christmas.
Coincidence?
So
Well,
I just tie it into what you were
Yeah.
saying about how book bans might affect publishers and their willingness to publish certain authors.
it's access. Access comes to mind, especially with the other part of your comment. You're talking about libraries and book vans, and those are the only places that some kids and families have access to books. So I think, do you mind, Andrew Bell, just telling us, not to be like the youth spokesperson for everything, but I'm a teacher. I teach high school kids. I see the decline in reading. Everybody's on the phone. You know, maybe they're reading on their phone, but it's not a lot of people picking up books and turning pages to read books at your age. And so, again, from the same perspective of a publisher who may not work with a certain type of author anymore because of the bans, do you think that, will books be missed by your generation? That maybe sound like a strange or off-putting question, but like, I see that there's not necessarily, you have an affinity, you do. Maybe even talk about why that is. But then like, why do you think other people don't that are your age?
There's a lot that can go into that. So much.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Tell it.
You asked if I think books would be missed by my generation, and I honestly, like, the majority, I think no. Not because they have a distaste towards book or they think that the topics are irrelevant. It's more just that there's so many things available today in society, not only for gathering information or for entertaining yourself. There's a lot available to everyone at any moment in time. And then at the same time, myself, I know that if I were to have a book online versus in paper, I can't focus clearly when I have it online. Unless it's reading to me and I'm following along, which another thing that a lot of people my age would do is they'll have a Kindle and it'll read to you. You can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can highlight without actually damaging anything. And that's another thing, that since there's so much availability online for books, they don't make them in paper. Like, there are some books you can only have online, which really sucks for other people who just, they can't focus unless they have a physical thing to immerse themselves with. Overall, I think books have a very big part of like school especially, but that's also why some people my age don't like books, because they think that it's something that's like forced on you rather than a privilege, a right. They think that, oh, I have to read this book because they told me to, not because I'm growing from it, I'm learning from it, I'm experiencing something that I wouldn't be able to experience myself.
She's so good. That was like 3 of my questions all answered at once, so that's good. Just because it's important for us to think about what technology is going to do with, how it's going to affect our lives as readers, as information gatherers, thinkers, conceptualizers, creators. There's a lot of things that are on the line when it comes to what gets lost in the shuffle, or what do we keep, and how do we discern that, and who's in charge of that? Is it the government? Is it our families? Is it our teachers? Is it ourselves? And because everything's accessible to everyone all the time, it can feel like there's an abundance, which means they can sneak in a book ban and steal the information right out from under our noses without knowing. I have brought up this topic to my students at school, especially since it's banned books week. I showed them a list of books and popular books. Oh, I read that. I read that in 6th grade or 7th grade. I was like, well, probably 6th and 7th graders now that you're in 11th and 12th won't be reading it. To Kill a Mockingbird, The Color Purple, The Hate You Give, like books that were kind of a staple of in a high school times. Just to give you some reference too, like I'm sure you've heard of some of those books, if not all.
I read all of those.
And she's read all of them, of course you have. I think it's just important for us as we, and especially when we look around the room, we look around our own social circles, around our families, who's there, what perspectives do we have, what's missing. And in this discussion, it's important for us not to just think one-sidedly like, oh gosh, book bans are the end of the world. Or, yeah, let's ban the books because we can just read them on our Kindle. Or, I don't know, there's so many different ways that people can interpret it. So I think you opened up and gave us a little bit of perspective. And I'm not sure if this is a redundant ask, but do you feel like there is hope, like for young readers and what is the future outlook for book lovers and young people when it comes to, and any of us can answer this, so we'll take Angie off the hot seat, but it's important, to me, that's like the children are the future, literally. So if we can't figure it out as adults in this generation, how do we expect solutions to be passed on or even the tools to find solutions? So I think maybe you might even want to be thinking about what questions would you ask the grown-ups about how to fix this? Or what would you want? What resources would you want for help? But before you say anything on that, I'm just curious if you friends have anything to think about, like the future for book lovers and the future for youth readers, how any of that comes into play or thoughts on it.
I have a lot of thoughts. So I'm not 100% sure if this is the title of it, but there's a podcast I listened to recently called Sold a Story. I think that's the name of it. And it was an investigative journalism piece around how reading is taught in public schools. And essentially, there was a lot of bunk research out there that was being used to teach teachers how to teach children how to read. And for years, it was these two camps, people who believe that phonetics and phonological reading and sight words and sounding out right is how you teach reading, and another group that did not believe that. And the group that did not believe that kind of won. And so reading had become a real challenge, and a lot of young people were not really being taught how to read. And the research shows that, I want to say it's like 40% of children with no intervention are going to become readers. They're going to learn how to read, they're going to figure it out. But that leaves 60% of children who have to be taught how to read, how to sound out. So I bring that up because in this conversation around why do children or young people not want to read, when you're being taught how to read in an inefficient way, you can internalize that as I'm stupid. I can't figure out how to read. And so you don't want to do something that's going to make you feel stupid over and over again, right? And then you compound that with going to school and being told what to read. We know through research that children are more likely to read and enjoy a book that chose rather than what was given to them, right? So knowing that, now there's a big push to try to change how reading is taught in schools. And I want to just say libraries have been doing the phonological reading forever, so we always knew that was how you teach children how to read. But now that we know that, hopefully teachers can embrace this more efficient way of teaching, and more children can learn to love reading. And we're already seeing with summer reading lists, they're not assigning what kids have to read. They're allowing choice during summer reading as long as you're reading something, right? So I really am excited about all of these steps that we're taking to allow people to just enjoy reading and to not make reading this
Chore.
obligation,
Yeah,
or this chore. And then I just to bring into the technological aspect that you mentioned, I got into TikTok over the lockdown.
Okay.
Oh my God.
It's a rabbit hole,
It's
isn't
a
it?
rabbit hole. But as an information professional, it's fascinating because there's so much information being shared on TikTok, and there's all these little worlds that exist, and one of them is called Book Talk. And so readers have.
You've heard of this? Oh, you've heard of this? Okay.
Yes, so Book Talk is essentially, it's a little digital community of readers. They share what they're reading, they share what they love, what they hate. It's really a fascinating place. And so I do think that technology, there's two sides of every coin, and technology both, creates challenges with books, but it also has a lot of positive aspects like community building and development. And I have friends who they travel and they're voracious readers and they love the ebooks because you just pack your little ebook and you can read all the things, in this one little. You don't have to pack all your hardcovers and soft covers in your suitcase. Or I have a friend who loves to read smut. So she is romance that is a little much. And she loves having her Kindle because she can now read it in public, and nobody knows what she's reading. So I think technology really does allow us to kind of be more of ourselves with our reading habits. So yeah, I think there's you can always find a reason to be pessimistic or cynical about the outlook, right, of what's to come. And there's a lot to be hopeful for when it comes to young readers and technology and books.
Agreed. I know that. I remember when I was talking to Kate when we were having our first one-on-one about this. She was like, I wonder how this is all going to affect young people. And like really trying to understand. And I love the intergenerational aspect of what we get to offer each other from all the aspects, from all the angles of that. And this, we've already had an aha moment together. You're like, oh yeah, the TikTok, which I don't particularly like at all. I feel like my students spend way too much time TikToking in the hallway and not being, if they spent that much time on their homework, we'd be good. So, but I understand, and I think community building is really important, especially after the pandemic, and especially not after, but even as a result of the books are ways for us to open up. And
Well, I'm
Yeah.
old school. When I
Talk it.
teach poetry, I'm the professor on campus who's lugging around books. Because I think it's important for students, anyone, to actually read hard copy of the books. I have my students go to the library and take out books. I also think that it is important for anyone to read everything that's in a book. All the publishing information, all the dates, the dedications, the acknowledgments. Because over time, you start to see how writers and editors and publishers and supporters form communities. I also think it's important for students to see how an author, a poet, would put a book together, would order a book in sections and whatever. And you just can't get that reading off the stream. You just can't get that. Also, when I teach poetry, I hand out single hard copies of poems so that students can actually write on the page and make their notes and ask their questions and discover patterns. And you just can't do that digitally. There's nothing. Digital, as you said, can be very important and convenient and can get to a lot of different people. But to my way of thinking, nothing can take the place of reading a hard copy and you learn other things about the author and their community and their thought process for how they put a volume of poetry together.
Here, here, here. I remember one of the people that I spoke to in my research, 90-year-old nun. I can't think of her name, but that's okay. Well, it's referenced in the slideshow and in other places. Sister Margaret, right. Just talking about, and even when she was telling me about it, she literally grabbed a book and was like, "Do you hear? I like how my fingers make a noise when I touch the pages." And just, I had asked her within that same conversation about how books can inspire movement and enjoying like other art forms through the lens of a book. And she talked about like the rhythm and the pace of opening and closing and turning pages and becoming one with the book, even that in that physical aspect. So, you know, it's a connection, mind-body connection with the pages of a book and with tactile task of writing and reading. And it's an art form in and of itself, just the written word. We've got a wonderful artist with us in Kate as a writer and poet. And I wondered if we could, and please Gabby and Angie jump in because I want lots of perspectives on this, but just thinking about the risk of other art forms or other rights to be stripped, lost, cut down, changed. I mean, we're seeing our country shift in ways with the laws and with women's rights and with immigration. Books are an art form that are supposed to be for all, and they're being banned. So what about, how do we go from, if the readers are not being able to read, then will the writers not be able to write? Will the dancers not be able to dance? Will the musicians not be able to play music? Just thinking about the ramifications of this for our country and for our community in particular too. You know, we have some power here to fix or make it the way we want. So I'm looking for some ideas or inspirations or thoughts about how it translates to other things and other beautiful things in our lives.
Well, I know it's kind of like TikTok. When you do something in government-wise, it sets a precedent. There's a whole section of laws that are called precedent laws. If something happens, it will affect not only previous decisions, but also the future decisions being made. So because the thing with book banning isn't they're saying, oh, you guys can't read anymore, you can't write about this topic. They're just trying to control the output and the input of certain groups in the industry. So with this control that they're trying to place, it's really easy to use that as a precedent. Say you're going on to the writing aspect. Of course, the First Amendment, it protects any writing that isn't like libel. However, that doesn't say anything about like, how do you use that writing? Like, what do you do with it? There is, of course, the protections as well as in gathering information. But if you're already controlling what specific information is given to the public by saying, oh, a public library is through the government, so if it's government language, we can restrict it. They're going to say any sort of funding from government can also be restricted. So it's really easy to use that as precedent to further propel any sort of unwanted agendas.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from you guys, ladies?
Well, just to affirm what you're saying, Angie Bell, in regards to federal funding and restrictions. So digital censorship already, for all intents and purposes, exists. In libraries, if you want access to federal funds, you have to put a filter on your computers through the Children's Internet Protection Act, which essentially filters out certain websites and things. And there have been lawsuits to push back against that because some of the websites that the SIPA filters filter out are actually educational, actually very useful. And so digital censorship is already alive and well through government intervention.
one quick topic I wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to get to was the idea of being a librarian.
Oh.
And like, I personally never had a librarian of color in my life. And I live in Hartford, and I went to Hartford Public Library. I don't recall there being a head librarian at my time as a child, anyway. And then at school, I didn't go to school in Hartford, so talk, if you wouldn't mind talking to us about like the underrepresentation
Sure.
of people of color, the difficulty of library science, and the dangers of what's
Yeah.
going on in the industry now, based on these same feelings.
Yeah. Well, the field of librarianship is, on any given year, somewhere between 82 and 88% white, and largely women, cis women. That is shifting. We are seeing more male librarians, and we are seeing more librarians of color. But it is an interesting space to navigate as a woman of color in a field that you're walking into a lot of rooms where nobody looks like you, and oftentimes you have a different perspective on things. So yeah, in terms of the dangers of being a librarian, I read that question and I had a moment where I was like, it feels hyperbolic, right? Like danger. But then I remember the horrific news story of a librarian who had to ban a patron, and the next day he showed up and he shot her in the parking lot. And I think about the experiences I've had with folks experiencing mental health crises, folks who are unhoused or experiencing housing instability, and the way that impacted me and staff, and it's a field a field that is widely misunderstood. I tell people I'm a librarian, and they're like, "You must love reading it all day," and it's like, I love reading. That's true, and that is I do none of that during 9 to 5. Or you need a degree to do that, and you do. And I want to bring up the degree because I think what a lot of people don't realize is with these book bans, the psychology for me is like maybe people think they're just retired community members who are volunteering their time. There is an entire degree and there is a code of ethics, and there is a Bill of Rights, and we have an overarching professional entity, and we make book selections with extreme care and extreme expertise, and with limited budgets. So if that book is on your shelf, we made the decision to spend our very limited budget on that book. And trust us, we chose that book for good reason. So when books are challenged, it is, not only is it devastating to the community, not only is it saying to a kid, you don't get access to this, it's a slap in the face to librarians saying, you don't know what you're doing, and that's frustrating. Just 2 years ago, Colchester had a huge issue with a book, a children's book, RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul, who does RuPaul's Drag Race, has a book. It's a little biography, and a parent went on Facebook and mentioned it to the first selectman, and the first selectman ordered the librarian to remove that book from the shelf and to do an audit of their books. Mm-hmm. Now, most libraries have a reconsideration policy, and there are procedures that you follow if you want to challenge a book. You write a letter, the book comes off the shelf, the librarians review, then they bring it to the library board, there's a vote, and then the determination is made. For the first selectman to supersede that process and just make that decision unilaterally is dangerous. It is wildly dangerous. That's her boss, she has to listen to what they're asking of her. And what does it mean? We're in Hartford, so we have a mayor, not a first selectman, but what does it mean that the mayor can walk into the library and say, take these books off the shelf? That's that is scary, you know? And so I'm the power of voting, being active in your local elections, join your library board, you know, vote for mayor, vote for the Board of Education. These people have real power. They have real power that we don't always think through. And we need to, A, know who we're putting in those seats, B, hold them accountable, and C, make sure that they're not, you know, abusing the powerful positions that we elect them into.
That's another totally agree. I know that our time is running out. I told y'all we could be here all day. This is beautiful voices on this panel. It's just, my heart is full with the success of this conversation. It's not over yet because I would love to hear from the audience. We're going to hear from people online and try to, until they kick us out, we'll keep going. But I would love to hear another selection from Kate, if I think we're all okay with that. I'm going to take a breath. There's some heavy topics, right? So we're going to let Kate's words just lift us a little bit and think about how books inspire justice and how our stories, as we reclaim those narratives and we make sure that we have input as to what our next generation will have access to, making sure that you're on the, well, I can't say the right side. You're on the side of justice that helps those things go through positively.
So like many of you here, books and libraries were very important to me as a child. I grew up in an African-American community in South Jersey with my grandparents, Lawnside, New Jersey, Lawnnside. It was the first African-American incorporated town in New Jersey, 1926. And I learned about African-American authors not only in my school, but also at home and in church. So this is called Freedom to Read. For my grandmother, Addie O. Arthur Williams, who gave me books. Once upon a time, there was a little girl. There was a little girl sitting cross-legged on a rug in her grandmother's living room. Sitting on a rug in her grandmother's living room in front of the bookcase. Sitting on the pretty pattern woven rug. She studied the golden alphabet embossed on the dark red spines of the encyclopedia. She dreamed, sitting cross-legged in front of the gleaming glass and cherrywood bookcase that smelled of furniture polish and other worlds. She read the titles and dreamt in her own private world. She held the blue hardcover book, ran her fingers over the gold embossed title. She returned day after day. She sat reading the names, reading the poems, reading and dreaming of one day becoming a writer. One day becoming a writer. Being included. Being included in a book like that one. A big, thick book of poems, stories, and essays. Reading and dreaming, dreaming and reading, dreaming and reading, reading and dreaming. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who went down to the library branch and learned to check out books on her own, dreamed of becoming a writer. The grandmother is no longer there. The bookcase is no more. Even her neighborhood library is gone. The little girl, however, has become a woman. The little girl has grown into the writer who sits before you. The writer who speaks. The writer who speaks to you, insisting that you read on, dream on, dream on, read on, insisting that you read the signs. Please, I beg of you, please protect the freedom to read. Please protect the freedom to dream.
Okay. I know. I see other people too. I don't feel so bad. Very moving. It's just a complete embodiment of the sentiment of the show today, of what I've been looking for and searching for answers and giving such honest and wonderful perspectives. As a group, we are activating. Yeah. Right? We're going to use our voice. We're going to speak up when we see something. We're going to try to speak collectively and also support each other in those voices, even if there's a little difference. We're going to vote. We're going to donate. We're going to donate money. We're going to donate books. We're going to donate our time. We're going to dedicate time to listen, to create, to respond, and to include other people's perspectives. Those are things you can walk away for sure with, of ideas. And tell someone about what you saw here today. Have a conversation at your dinner table. Look through a little bit different lens when you see it on TV, or when you see someone doing a TikTok about it. You're like, oh, hey, I can get down with that. Really important. And JDPP this is just one of many of our efforts in trying to bring some balance and some justice. That's why we renamed the company Justice Dance Performance Project. I know that Judy's sitting right over there proud of all of the efforts, and we can't do it, there's so much of it that she's integral in terms of decision making. But I am really happy for the space to spread my wings up here as the host. I thank Robin for being amazing. Yeah. And technology wizard, genius, PowerPoint specialist, and our office doesn't run smoothly unless Robin's at the driver's seat. So I encourage you all to please follow us on all the social medias. Visit our website often. Take a look at resources we have available to you, including a book list and banned book list access under the response and a call page. And I want you to come to our Purple Party in December. It's going to be an amazing fundraiser at the Artist Collective, and it should be a good time. We have lots to celebrate. I know that this topic, there's like a lot of emotions on a day like today, but there's much to celebrate for the organization and for ourselves. And depending on what happens in November, we might just need each other even more. We're going to need each other anyway. There's going to be a survey sent out to each of you who registered. Feedback is necessary. That's a place to use your voice. That's a place to know that we're doing the right thing. And like Andre gave some really wonderful feedback out loud. Please fill out the survey, sir. And make sure your voice is in writing so we can utilize those things as part of our tools. And just talk, go across the aisle here today and talk to someone new. Go across the aisle anywhere, wherever you are, and talk to someone new. Because the stories of others will feed the books, the dances, all the inspirational things that are to come. And we have to leave good models for our next generations that are here watching us. My name's Melissa. Thanks for being here. Hope we didn't go too far over time, and I appreciate it, and I love you, Mom. My mom's here. Oh, thanks to Nelson. Thanks, Nelson. Right?
I checked first.
Thank you to my amazing guests. They know it. They're going to get all kind of hugs and love. Gabby Barnes, Kate Grushin, Angie Belsuarez. Thank you all for being here. Have a great, wonderful day. Get home safe.